Everybody, good evening and happy new year. And welcome back. And we're going to get started with a new series. I'll tell you all about that in a couple of minutes. I do have a couple of announcements I want to just mention to you. Um, Dave Diamond is doing his workshop this Saturday at 1 o'clock. It's on releasing and replenishing yourself through sound. It's a sound healing workshop. It's at 1 o'clock at Starting Point, and it's on Zoom. And if you're interested, the information is in the newsletter. You can get in the website. You can pick it up there. Also, Anne-Marie Rivnak and Court Rivnak are starting a monthly workshop, and it's on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. And basically, the one this week is on the gift of change. Again, all this information is on our website. You can check it out if you want to. And most of the stuff we are doing in this direction still is on Zoom, so you can check that out also. Okay. Also, anything else we got going on, the calendar is there with all the different activities. We have some meetings on site. We have other meetings that are combination, so you can check it all out on our calendar. Okay, I want to do a reading tonight. I picked a reading from the For Today book, which is one of my eating disorder reading books. And I picked January 6th. It kind of fits in a little bit to the topic I want to talk about tonight. January 6th. I need only to look and see that all things happen in their own time. The resolution of each problem has its own timetable. No amount of wishing, wringing of hands, or raging will affect the change. Acceptance is a simple act of going through what is presently facing me, be it pain, anger, despair, hopelessness, or their opposites. When life as it really is becomes a fact that I accept as naturally as I breathe, events lose their power to throw me off balance or disturb the basic rhythm of my life. Acceptance also comes in its own time. I do not berate myself for not having it on demand. I like that reading because it kind of fits into, the world we live in today, because I think we've got to a point where we expect everything immediately. And I've often loved the phrase in recovery that everything happens in God's time, not in our time. And it brings me back to the things I was taught by my father about patience, and that patience is a powerful virtue, and to be able to connect in that direction. So we're going to be doing, during the month of January, I'll be doing a 4-week series on addictions. But I want to kind of share something with you about addiction. I want to talk tonight about what I call the core root of addiction, which is codependency. It's the foundation of everything, because addiction is only the cover. And we migrate towards addiction because we don't look at what's underneath, the roots, the foundations that are underneath. So as a result, then we have a tendency, if we put one addiction down, to pick up another addiction. And some of us are really good at addiction jumping, as I call it, going from one to another. And so we have to learn to go back to the roots and the foundation. So I kind of share that with you tonight. It's a kind of an introduction to different areas of addiction, which I'll go in more detail into as we go through each area. I want to start off by giving you a little bit of theory. I promise not too much, okay? Because I don't want to have to text Charlie's brain, but not too much theory. But basically, if you take a course called Philosophy 101, they actually have a diagram for how life is supposed to be. And I really found this really interesting. There really is a diagram of how things are exactly supposed to happen in life. Now, codependents like those kind of things, I know that. But the bottom line is real simple. From ages 0 to 10, from birth to 10, are referred to as the foundation years. All of our traits, all of our characteristics, our foundations are developed, they say, in the first 10 years of your life. From age 11 to about 14 are referred to as the age of confusion. We're going through transition and change. We don't really know who we are. Our hormones are jumping all over the place. We get a little bit crazy. And then from 14 to about 20 is called the war zone, or the concept of a battle. It's the battle for independence between you and your family. It's supposed to take place because, believe it or not, according to that diagram, between 20 and 26 you are supposed to become a totally independent person. And then from 26 to 120 is called adulthood and the stage of commitment. Now, I love the concept, but the ages, forget it. But I do believe in the process because I really believe deep down inside that so many times in the course of our journey in life, we've got to go through this process for growth. Now, I didn't even find out about it until I was 44 years old, so it's kind of fun. But you realize it doesn't make any difference what your age is. The process is still there. I'll show you how it works. At the moment of your birth, when you come into this world, whether you want to or not, you are immediately joined 5 families. Those families are part of who you are. Your blood family, or sometimes a step family, your neighborhood, your cultural or your environment family. You also join a religious family system or a non-religious family system. I'm sure when I was 1 month old, I'd jump up and down in my crib and say, please baptize me Catholic. My parents took me, placed me into their belief system, which really wasn't mine, but then it kind of became my normal. As a result, then, we also enter into a pure family and a society family, and especially today, because we are affected in so many ways today by so many different types of social media. We're affected in so many different ways, it's unbelievable today. And so literally, in growing up as a child, we have so many different areas of life that are affecting us. But in reality, for each of us to go through a growth process in life, there are 5 basic fundamental spiritual principles that every one of us are searching for in the course of our journey in life. When I use the word spiritual, just to clarify, I'm not talking about religion. The word spiritual actually means to come to an awakening of your personal self. And so the 5 basic needs that we have are the need to feel safe, the need to feel safe, the need for unconditional love, the need for basics, food, shelter, and clothing. We also have a tremendous need for life skills, as I call them, how to play, how to socialize, how to interact with other human beings, but above all, to learn intimacy and trust. And finally, we have a need for family, a need for society, a need to be able to interconnect with other human beings. All of our growth takes place in a family system. It takes place in our connection with others. That's one of the reasons why I truly believe if we lock off and isolate, we're not going to grow. And so the real process of life takes place in those initial years. So in the first 10 years of your life, we pick up our traits and our characteristics based on our needs. Now, if those needs aren't met when you're a child, so if your normals in growing up are things such as, and I can only share my own, but basically, for example, being Italian, I know at the moment of my birth, I picked up 3 basic fundamental characteristics: fear, guilt, and worry. I got a PhD in it at the moment of my birth. But the bottom line was I also picked up a lot of shame, a lot of isolation, a lot of abandonment, a lot of different things that came up.
No,
that
you
we
got to
had
get something else that's louder.
that we had a hard time with because it really hurt us in very many ways in our growth process. And so what happens a lot of times is many of us migrated towards this thing called codependency because basically our basic needs were not getting met. And so our definition of codependency is very simple. Any person, place, or thing that I've built a dependency on means I cannot function without it. That makes my life unmanageable, that makes my life crazy. That could be a substance, that could be a person, that could be a relationship, that could be a family, that could be a job, it could be a lot of things. Literally, what I can do is I can use an addiction to run away from having to look at what's really going on inside of me. Now, I'll show you examples of this as I go through this. And so many of us, as a result of not getting our needs met, we basically end up developing what I call codependency traits and characteristics. I put them into 3 categories. We either become isolators or we become fantasizers. or we become caretakers. I call that the jackpot, by the way. And so we actually pick up these three traits and characteristics. Isolators are normally children that grew up in homes. They've experienced a lot of abandonment, a lot of emptiness, a lot of loneliness. These are the kids that probably were never given a lot of love. And so in growing up as children, they feel very empty, very alone, and very fearful. I often refer to them as the children of fear. So as a result, I don't know how to really function in the world around me. So I try to find a place to hide. Now, the addictions that come under this, one of the most powerful addictions, and one we're going to talk a lot about in the future, is something called institutional addiction or technology addiction. It's a great place to hide. I can hide in an institution or I can hide in technology. And we see a lot of this today because literally everything I have in life is in my hand, a thing called the cell phone. And then I can also, if I have any questions, I can call Mrs. Google and she answers all my questions for me. So I really have no real sense of who I am as a person. I'm dependent on this instrument. It can become an addiction. The same thing with an institution. I'm empty and lonely. And if I really am lonely and sad, I can find myself a therapist and I can take the therapist hostage because isolators are very good hostage takers. Then if I get sick, they put me into an institution. And guess what? I get the warm fuzzies. I get 3 meals a day. I get tickets to the ballpark. I don't get that in my family. So after a while, I like being in an institute. I become institutionalized. So we see a lot of this happening in our society because we're all searching for a place to belong. The other addictions that come under isolation are drugs and alcohol. We call these the functional addicts. They go to work every day, they function, they go through the things of life, but they use alcohol or drugs to take the edge off, to get them through the day, because they just can't function on their own. And so as a result, they constantly do this. And so they're hiding in their addiction. The other addiction that comes under this are relationship addictions. I'm empty, I'm lonely, I'm scared. The first person that comes along that treats me nice, I want to take the sucker home. There's an old saying we have in the program: if you truly love someone, let them go. If they're supposed to come back, they'll come back. Addicts don't believe that. So our philosophy is if you truly love someone, follow them and stalk them. They try to get away, kill them. Well, a few control issues going on here. Possessiveness. You can get caught up in that because I'm empty. I want somebody to pay attention to me. So I need attention constantly. The other addiction that comes under this very many times is workaholism. Individuals that work and do the exact same thing every day till 3 days after they're dead. Half the time, they don't even know they died. They still show up for work. It's totally amazing. It becomes your identity, who I am and what I'm really all about. And the other one that comes under isolation is anorexia. I call it the secret addiction we don't talk about too much. Anorexia is a very powerful disease that shuts the body down, that closes the body off, starvation. So as a result, then I can purge, I can basically do all these things. So somebody's always got to take care of me because I don't want to be responsible for anything. So I want attention. And it's a great way to get attention. See, so many times we have a tendency to want to isolate and hide. And addiction can be a great place to hide to avoid having to look at the things I have to look at. The second area is called fantasy. In fantasy, usually there's a background of people that come out of homes in childhood where they've experienced a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment. I call these are the children that are at very young age begin to make up stories. And as a result, they start believing their own stories. They're very insecure. They have no sense of self at all. So as a result, they literally have to become something they're not. And as a result, they can be very easy to become addicted to power and control. Because literally what I'm doing is I start making up stories that really aren't true. And then people say, well, you're telling a lie. No, I'm not. But here's the scary part. I believe my own stories. It's called the survival piece. We have a theoretical name for it, disassociation. I use the example very many times that when I was a priest and I lived in a rectory with another priest who was a pedophile, I had no idea at all because it's like you live two different lives. It's that concept that when I'm in the shame world, the shame takes me over. When I'm in the other world takes me over. So I'm constantly living an outside image, but the inside of me is totally messed up. And a lot of times these are individuals that have gone through severe trauma, major traumas, but they can't look at them or deal with them. So shame is a powerful, powerful thing that leads us to addiction. These are the drug addicts and alcoholics whose lives are very unmanageable and very crazy. But you confront them, guess what? I don't have a problem, you do. So what do? I blame somebody else. I put all my stuff onto you because I want you to take it. If you take it, I ain't got to deal with it. I always tell a funny story. I love telling this story. When I was a priest, I was running the halfway house in Philadelphia. Came out of the halfway house one day and I was walking past the bar at 23rd and Moore in this Point Breeze section of South Philly. And it was summertime, the bar doors were open. One of the guys in my halfway house was sitting there having a shot and a beer. Well, I saw him, he saw me. I didn't say a word. I just kept walking. He came running out of the bar, screaming down the street, "Father, I'm not drinking." The nut actually carried the shot glass out with him. Then when he saw me, he stuck it in his pocket. You tell me how many normal drinkers do that? But here's the scary part about it. When he saw me, shame kicked in. And when he screamed at me down the street that he wasn't drinking, he truly believed that. It's hard for us to understand. But psychologically, you can't understand it because the shame made him go into another way to survive. These are survivor techniques I'm talking about. The other addiction under this are sexual addictions. And very many times these are addictions that create havoc in people's families. Yet at the same time, we call them the secret addictions. And as a result, then literally, these are things that occur, and they occur because basically we don't know how to handle life. And usually, very many times, people that suffer from sexual addiction usually have been sexually abused themselves and have secrets, a lot of deep secrets in the background. We also see things such as narcissism, things as power, control, compulsive shoplifting. All these things come into play under fantasy addiction. Because what I actually do is I have such a negative image of myself, I have to create this fantasy on the outside. And the scary thing is I believe it. I believe it. So I live in a world of make believe, even though I try to convince everybody it's real. It's a real scary concept, fantasy addiction. And at the same time, it affects a lot of people in a lot of areas. The third area is called caretaking. Although, let me go back to fantasy just for a minute. I forgot one area of fantasy, and that is relationship addictions. Fantasizers are scared to death of relationships. And that's why they love to be involved in relationships with people who are not available for relationships. If I can't have you, I want you. If you're available, get lost. I don't want that commitment stuff. I want the excitement, the insanity, because I'm used to shame, insanity, and craziness. And as a result, then I migrate towards it all the time. The third area is called caretaking. Now, if you want to stick around, I can talk about this till about midnight. This is my core addiction. I understand it really well. And it took me a long time to deal with this sucker. But I realize over and over again, the caretaking normally are what I call the goody two-shoes kids, the nice guys and gals. These are the kids that go from 3 to 43. In short, very many times we have to relinquish our childhood. These are individuals who at a very early age have a tremendous amount of expectation put on them. I'm 5 years old and you're saying to me, you're the man of the family now, or what I got to do, go to work? It's scary because the concept is you're putting a lot of pressure on me. So as a result, we don't realize it, but caretakers very many times have a lot of repressed anger, a lot of frustration inside themselves. But on the outside, they put on a good show because they're very much in the control. And so as a result, they migrate towards addiction, drugs and alcohol. but we call them the legal addicts. You won't see them going to Camden to get drugs. These are individuals who will basically use the prescription drugs, things to take the edge off, to keep them going. I fit this category, a couple of categories, because I used to use alcohol. I used to use different types of pills to put myself to sleep at night because I couldn't stop because of my workaholism. And so very many times, everything I did in secret behind closed doors. Nobody knew about it. And so as a result, to the outside world, I didn't have a single problem. That's why I could fit into all three categories. So as a result, then I began to believe my own lies. And the scary part about it was I still performed. And so very many times addiction is a way, just to take the edge off, to calm you down, to get some sleep, maybe settle for a while. But as a result, then you get addicted to it after a while. You get caught up in it. It's like a big merry-go-round. The other addiction goes under this very many times with caretakers. Caretakers are very good at the addiction of control. I call it the illusion of control. That means I got to be in control of everything. That's why caretakers make excellent nurses, teachers, they make excellent servants, they make excellent moms, they make excellent people that do things for everybody else. But the bottom line is when it's my turn, they're always in the background. And caretakers also, because of control when it comes to workaholism, they love to be involved in jobs where they can be in charge. They like being in charge, by the way. So I joke a lot. I often said that if you want to make a lot of money, start your own business. If you need 15 workers, hire 5 caretakers, maybe 3. They do the work of 5 people, not a problem at all. See, they don't want a lot of help. They want to do everything themselves. A lot of times I want to be in charge of everything because I can do it better than anybody else can do it. It's that control thing. But they have all these different rules. They're going to bitch about you, grab about you, complain about you all day long. But don't worry, they'll never do anything. They like to bitch and complain. What can I tell you? Again, it's part of that repressed anger coming out of you. It comes out in funny ways in different directions. So it's all part of the process we go through a lot of times. And so we begin to see this over and over again in different areas of our life. And so also what happens a lot of times is we have a tendency not to be able to ask for our worth, which is a big piece of caretaking. We have a real hard time asking for our worth. As a result, then people take advantage of us, but we want them to, because then we can control them too. When it comes to relationships, another addiction under caretaking, we love to be involved in relationships with sickies. The sicker, the better. Bring me your sick and you're deprived, and I will take care of them. There's rules, though, always rules. Don't you dare get well. Because I'm going to bitch about you, gripe about you, complain about you all day long. See, I like that. Because I'm in charge. You're not. As a result, then, I always tell the funny story. I love telling this story. My aunt is in a wheelchair, and I go visit her maybe once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks. Whenever I go to visit her, our next door neighbor sees me coming. And our next door neighbor is an Italian lady, who lives next door to her. And when she sees me coming, she comes over to have coffee with us. And I'm going to tell you this because this is the story she tells me every time I go there. I have it memorized. She sits there and complains the whole time about her husband, the bum. I've been living with this bum for 48 years. He's a bum. He does nothing. I cook, I clean, I do this, I do that. Same story every time. One day I basically made the biggest mistake. I said to her one day, "Why do you stay with him?" She almost ripped my head off. Because I love him. I'm going to tell you a secret. If that man ever tried to do anything, she'd kill him. All this control stuff when it comes to relationships. And as a result, then we literally get caught up in enabling and trying to fix and take care of people. Our codependency comes screaming out a lot of times in caretaking. The other addiction that comes under caretaking, a very scary addiction, is compulsive overeating. Because very many times compulsive overeaters don't understand this a lot of times, but we have a lot of secrets and a lot of stuff buried inside of us and a lot of repressed anger. And I can speak to this. I used to weigh close to 300 pounds at one time. And when I was in my addiction, my eating disorder addiction, I literally had so much repression inside of me, it was unbelievable. And yet, to the outside world, I appeared to be all together. And I realized today that anger almost killed me. It created an addiction. It created a nervous breakdown, time in a psychiatric hospital. It almost took me out. I almost, I almost died as a result of it. And I realized today what this crazy addiction can do to you. And I'm realizing today the importance of taking care of myself and taking care of my body and looking at things totally differently today. And so when I talk about addiction, I'm talking about a way in which many of us have a tendency either to run away from things, to hide, or a lot of control issues to try to get through life. Because fundamentally, deep down inside, we have no real sense of who we are as a person. So the addiction is only the cover. The real fear is going back into those roots and those foundations and being able to take a look at what's really going on and do some growing in the course of your life. I know on my own journey for many years, I didn't want to do this. I was too scared to do it. I didn't say that nicely. I just bury stuff inside of me. You know, we have a saying in the program, you're sick as your secrets. Well, God, I had a ton of them. I had a ton of secrets of things I kept hidden for a long period of time. And I thank God to this day, to a very special therapist who worked with me, who helped me. I thank God for my eating disorder program today. I thank God for the people who had the courage to put up with me as I went through the process of recovery. Because I realized over and over again how important it is to go back and look at the roots and the foundations of where this stuff comes from. So to give you an idea, in your growing up process as a child, for a little girl in growing up, daddy is supposed to be the love of your life. He's supposed to be a role model for relationships. For a little boy, it's supposed to be mommy. Mommy's supposed to be your first love. The same thing as regards in growing up process. Daddy is supposed to be, for a little boy, his role model for what it means to be a man. And for a little girl, it's supposed to be mommy. Yeah, so many times these things, we picked up a lot of crazy traits and characteristics as a result of this. My mother, I love her, and she's good. I look at her differently today. My mom was the addict in my family, and my mom, I picked up my addictive personality from my mom. And today, I'm grateful for that. My compulsive overeating came from my mom. My mom was a very big and heavy woman. And so I picked up a lot of traits and characteristics from mom, picked up all my codependency traits from my father. My father, Mr. Wonderful and Mr. Fantastic, who did everything for everybody, never did a thing for himself his whole entire life. He had no life of his own. And the family loved him. Everybody loved him. But as soon as he died, the whole family fell apart because everybody was dependent on him, He was the hero. I became my dad with the personality of my mother. I picked up traits and characteristics. And this is not looking at them negatively, by the way. These were my parents. They were my first teachers. And I got to be able to do my work and go back and look at where this stuff comes from. So when I take you through the addiction process and cover these different addictions from all these different angles, I want to take a look at how the recovery process works along with them. I don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on the addiction, as I want to really spend more time talking about the recovery. So how I want to do this is I'm going to spend the whole entire week just on isolation addictions, or I refer to as the hiding addictions. Then spend the whole week on the fantasy addictions, then a whole week on the caretaking addictions. Because all these different areas of life are things we do because the root of all addiction is codependency. It is the foundation of everything. And one of the most powerful things I had to learn in life was how to be able to go back and look at my history, look at my past, and be able to learn from it and grow from it. This is not looking at things negatively, because your history is yours. Congratulations. It will always be yours. The secret of recovery is being able to identify my history, embrace it, and let it become my teacher. And I've learned so much through that process. I'm so grateful for it. And I love sharing it with people because I've learned how finally getting to a point where I could finally learn how to love me and care for me and take care of me and look at things differently. And I'm very grateful to our 12-step programs for that. And I found out later on that the 12 steps really were a foundation for doing this work. And I'll show you how all this works as we go through the recovery process. And I'll show you how this interconnection with addiction is so important. Because otherwise, you know what's going to happen? Because many of us do have addictive personalities. We'll just end up what I call addiction jumping. That's why I look today. I can probably belong to half these 12-step programs. It wouldn't be a problem at all. Because I can identify. Because I can very easily fall into something else if I'm not careful. So the bottom line is we got to go back and look at the roots, look at the foundations, and do our learning and do our growing from it. So I hope this series we're going to do this month will help you to begin to really look at this in a positive way. Then I'll follow it up in February with a series on grief, loss, and separation, which interconnects with this series I'm doing right now. That's why I love doing these two things in January and February to kind of get us off the ground and get rolling again. So take the time to look at codependency, to look at our own traits and characteristics. And I know people always ask me this question, so I'll answer it ahead of time. Can I fit all three categories? Of course. If you're a really good card-carrying codependent, you can fit all three, not a problem at all. I know I do. And because what do we do in life to get through life? We kind of bounce back and forth to get through this process of life. And so will we understand everything? No. But we'll be able to do our work, look at ourselves, and be able to realize the fact that addiction hinders me. Recovery saves me. It's an important part of this process we go through. So I'm going to offer a prayer tonight to help us to begin to look at all these different little things we talked about today. And be able to realize the fact that it's all about learning, it's all about growing, but knowing where the source really comes from. I did that reading today because I learned something really powerful in that reading. Everything in life comes in God's time, not in our time. I have learned to be more patient. My father used to drill this into me when I was a kid, and I didn't really understand it. He used to say, "Pacienza, Wyoming." Little boy, patience, patience. Everything will work out. And so many times today, I get so caught up on my compulsiveness that I worry about everything and drive myself crazy. But in time, everything does find its way and work its way out. We got to be open to the process for that. That's what life really is all about. And so let us just share prayer in that direction as we close out tonight. Let us pray. God, we come before you as a family. We come before you in prayer. We ask for your help. We ask for your guidance, and we ask for your direction. We know that you walk along with us and you guide us. Teach us the gift of patience. Teach us the gift of acceptance. And above all, the gift of gratitude. Teach us to realize the fact that we're in the process of growing and learning about ourselves. Help us on that journey. And know that the greatest adventure that you give to us in life is the adventure of our spiritual growth. Help us on our journey today. But we know if we trust you and we're open to you, we'll be led. For you are the ultimate messenger. You are the ultimate guide. We pray and we ask in a very special way that you walk with us as we walk this journey. And as we realize our humanness and realize the need for forgiveness and healing, and realize the fact that only with you and with the gift of one another as a family will our growth take place in our life. So we pray and we ask that God will guide us and be with us in all that we do each and every day of our life. And we ask for God's guidance, and we pray for this in God's name. Amen. Now I'm going to ask all of you, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, we're going to close by doing the we version of the serenity prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.